Scott, thanks so much for joining me on the Slice of Finance podcast. How are you today?
Doing well, Jared. Thanks for having me.
Super excited. First time that you've been on the show. So what I always like to do with first time guests is would love just a quick rundown of your background and a company overview, just in case there's someone hearing about you and the company for the first time. And then we'll dig deep from there.
That sounds great. My name is Scott Weller. I'm the Chief Technology Officer and co-founder of EnFi. We're on a mission to redefine how commercial credit is processed and issued and really address a lot of the mundane aspects of managing commercial credit portfolios using AI and using new innovative AI techniques. Our journey started with the just working with different companies on obtaining commercial credit. And frankly, just looking at the experience of obtaining that from a business perspective is not the customer experience is just not often fantastic. And so we felt like we could significantly change that by building tools around that. And so that led us down a journey of like, how do we make this a fantastic experience? And how do we make it a fantastic experience for any bank in the world? And so that led us to where we are today. And so my background is in data and in analytics and in AI. And so I tend to bring a lot of those tools to the equation and look at things maybe a little bit differently than how we might traditionally look at it if we kind of use the same tools that we have in our toolbox in the back office at a financial institution.
So when we think about those financial institutions, like they start using you, what do they feel like initially? What like in terms of that big difference from what they were working with before and now they're working with you? What do they see? Let's kind of maybe in the first like 30, 60 days, like what are they feeling? What are you hearing?
I think I'll go for a top down at the executive level at a fund, or we work with private credit funds and institutional banks that are all just dealing with everything from like SBA loans to really complicated lending instruments like capital call lines of credit or fund and sponsor banking, and everything in between. And from an executive perspective, we know there's a lot of FOMO right now around doing things to be more efficient, more effective, doing more with the teams they have, lending more with the teams they have. And this idea that maybe AI can actually bring a lot of efficiencies to the table, given that we are in a hype cycle around AI. So that information is being delivered to every executive that you should be doing something with AI. And so there's a lot of FOMO around missing out on that. And so what we do is when we come to the table, we recognize that there is a lot of interest, and we recognize that also there's a lot of fear around getting it wrong. And so we come to the table first, like from a strategic perspective of bringing our team to the table and really delivering a set of tools that allow them to crawl, walk, run into that opportunity. So the first 30 days, it's about onboarding your individual team members onto the platform, getting a certain loan category or a set of loans within that category onboarding, and allow them to feel how their processes might change based on the efficiencies they gain. And so we start with one loan and we go all the way to 1,000 loans over the course of 90 days. But those first like moments and experiences tend to come with a lot of fear around how AI might change my job, how AI might create new or the need for new processes. But we can get through that by taking a much more crawl, walk, run strategy. And the results are real. You end up seeing like time to value from the institution sort of processing a deal to when they can get a response to a business on a commercial line of credit goes from being possibly weeks to days. And like the first time a customer sees that, they start having that aha moment. Like if we applied this to all of our loan categories, we'd be significantly more capable of delivering a better customer experience from a commercial perspective.
Super interesting. What do you wish, this could be your customers, this could be your prospects, what do you wish they knew about EnFi that maybe, and this is to no fault of you or your teams, like, but what do you wish they knew about EnFi and the space that you operate in that maybe they don't today?
I think one of the things that I think would be fantastic for everyone to know about EnFi is we tend to look at the world maybe not with the same institutional chains that we've all had in the financial services business around what's possible. We're data practitioners. You want to turn all the data in your I think we've often been very document heavy in financial services for a really, really long time. And especially in commercial, a lot of intelligence is like baked into PDFs and spreadsheets and documents. And what I want, everyone to understand, like our first mission is to sort of unlock that data so that it can be used by the institution in brand new ways. In order to speed up things like underwriting and speed up things like continual risk assessment, one of our missions is to enable you to continually assess risk. And in order to do that, you need to sort of unlock that data first. So like we are on a mission to enable you to have this institutional knowledge layer that's just all about what information do we have and how can we use that to better serve the customer? How do we use that better balance our portfolios? How do we use that to get ahead of, there might be events occurring in the marketplace and you need to do an assessment across your entire portfolio instead of that taking a couple months, should be a query that takes a couple hours. So that's the first thing I want our potential customers and for the industry to know is that we're going to unlock the value of your data, and that's our ultimate mission at the core. And then once you have that institutional layer, we're gonna apply, solid techniques that are purpose built for financial services on top of that. And we're not going to apply kind of standard things you might read about on Medium or in a LinkedIn post. We're gonna apply things that are custom built for financial services and have a level of accuracy that meets a human accuracy bar. And so that's what I would love for them to know. And also, I'd also love them to know that we're approaching this new wave of AI as curious and cautious. Like our curiosity every single day is about exploring what's new. We have prototyping techniques that are isolated from our production environments that allow us to explore and learn. While at the same time, we recognize there's certain things that should have a maturity cycle when it comes to bringing that to the customer. And so that allows us to sort of be ahead of the curve when it comes to understanding how these techniques should work for them, while at the same time being cautious around delivering that at scale. And so those are some of the things. I'd ask you, like, what are you seeing in the market around AI? And, how do you, I would say, what are some of the things that you think our customers might be thinking about that maybe we haven't heard as an early stage startup?
I mean, a lot of what I've heard is I think even these financial institutions that maybe would have been slower moving several years back, they have increased a little bit their willingness to adopt new technology more than I've even heard or seen in the past. But they're still not unlike a lot of other industries that are going just super, super fast, they're more cautious. But I think they have to be, right? Given the data and everything that they're, they have a lot more personal information that they're collecting than some of these other spaces. It seems that like a lot of the things that I want to ask you, I'm glad you brought up AI because I hear this so much. It's in the space that you're in. How do you stay up to speed with how everything is changing so quickly? The models, like if you went away for 2 days and came back, there would be all this new news that you'd have to catch up on in terms of what changed in many cases, right? So whenever I talk with banks or some of these other fintech companies, my favorite question to typically ask is, how are you staying on top of everything that's happening? And then they always ask me when I have people like you on the show, ask them because we're trying to figure out what's working for everyone else to not miss anything.
Yeah, and as a CTO, I got to, definitely have to construct an organization that can respond to the speed of the market and also build the foundations for scalability, reliability, high degree of security. And so sometimes those two things are at odds with each other. You've got every team member just plugged into kind of what happened today on LinkedIn or like what was the announcement from, pick your foundation model company. What did Sam Altman say yesterday at a press briefing? And you could distract the team and create a high degree of reliability issues. And so we've constructed our team in a way where we have a core research team that's just doing research around AI innovation. And they are the ones that are kind of at the tip of the spear. And every single day, the founders of the company and the research team are out there doing a tremendous amount of reading. I mean, I think our head of the research team probably reads 20, like just consuming all of the knowledge and information that's out there. We then create a knowledge base internally that's AI driven that allows us to query that, talk to it, and actually engage with it so that any team member can go ask a question to it. So it's like our institutional memory bank around what's happening in the industry. We then have constructed our organization so that we have an engineering group that's working on how to convert those learnings into the facts around what we're going to build for our roadmap and then build it. In that particular circumstance, we're kind of churning out new concepts and ideas that are coalescing from the learnings that we see every day into solid things we can test. And then within every group within engineering, they're given the opportunity to be what we call AI champions. And we introduced this idea of engineering squads taking a moment to be AI champions, taking those ideas in and using it to X a certain metric. They can decide to 10X their own personal development capacity by onboarding and testing a new development tool. They can X customer onboarding by improving our tooling for like getting customers onto the platform, or they can 10X the customer's outcomes by creating a feature that uses this new capability around this AI innovation. And then we go through a process of maturing that to a point where we feel confident bringing that to the customer. And that could take anywhere from weeks to months to 6 months to a year to get that out to the customers. We really created this pipeline around capturing the momentum in the marketplace while still gating it for the acceptance criteria of what it truly means to purpose built for our financial services customers, which are very unique. They're very unique considerations and requirements that we have to adhere to. And that's what we do today. And every day we ask ourselves the question, like, how can we improve this? And how do we think about making another turn that 10X's our ability to be better at this?
By the way, let me just thank you for sharing. Let me just share and say thank you and your team for basically focusing your powers on creating something worthwhile. I'm seeing you probably see this all the time, like 90% of these applications that are being created are just an absolute like waste of like super smart like people and time, but they're getting funded. They're getting like, I don't know. I see all these. I'm not going to call anyone out, but I think we all know which applications and things that ends up being. But I just get really excited when I see like people like you and your team building something that's actually worthwhile in the space. Like I don't want to necessarily see you have more competition, right? Like I want you guys to keep doing your thing, but it's so cool to see people in this space building companies that are actually solving real problems versus just all this other stuff. I had to say
there's a ton of experimentation happening in the space. And I'd also say that that experimentation is good, right? I mean, you end up seeing like a lot of different concepts and ideas. And I think there are companies that are essentially wrappers around core models and capabilities with a spin. And I think we've seen this doing other evolutions. I don't know if you remember, but like when mobile apps started really getting into the fray, there were a bunch of companies built mobile apps on top of capabilities that Apple had. And eventually Apple launched an app for that thing, right? I think there were a bunch of like health tracking apps and eventually Apple launched it. So I think if you're a company that's just like closing gaps in AI capability, eventually the foundational models will come and close those gaps. We've decided that our mission is to be the commercial lending AI experts. So when you bring us on to there's a couple things that happen. One, in the market maturity is that the market's trying to figure out how to best apply AI so that every team can punch above their weight class. Every institution is asking the question that how do we increase our portfolio value and increase our revenue with the team we have? And so let's use technology to do that is generally the answer. And so we decided to become the commercial lending AI experts because we can first come in and have a great conversation and do pilots and do testing with our product that demonstrates the right way for that organization to do it. And you kind of get a team of experts that kind of plugs in that you never had before. And so by being the commercial lending AI experts, we can do that in the commercial space and be just ultimately great at that. There are plenty of AI companies that don't set that mission first. They're just like, hey, let's use a foundational model to do something interesting. And I feel like that sets them on a track of trying to do way too much too fast and maybe result in something that's not helpful or useful for their potential customers. We are on a mission to make sure that we're solving problems that not only have a burning need within an institution, but it's a burning need with a consequence. Like we all like to use like software tools and things that make Like I think even in podcasting, you're using a tool that like it's a burning need for you. You
Yeah.
need to use a tool that allows you to like record and edit and all of the things that support your podcasting. And similarly, like when we look at portfolio managers, we look at analysts, we look at chief credit officers, we look at what they do every day, and we live and breathe that so that we can come to the table with something that not only fits a burning need, but fits a burning need that has a consequence. We just launched a feature that allows you to screen a deal within a couple minutes. And that's helpful to everyone in that chain of events, but most helpful to the customer, because the consequence is the institution may not get another look at that deal against a competitor, especially if it's in a lending space that's highly competitive. So being able to get a really solid, trustworthy answer that the underwriters agree with, that the relationship managers agree with, that everyone agrees with in a few minutes is transformative. I worked at MasterCard, and one of the things I learned while working at MasterCard is anytime you can secure and speed up a financial transaction, it has huge ripple effects for an entire economy. And specifically for commercial lending, that's exactly what EnFi is ultimately doing. We're securing the data and making it accessible across an institution and a borrower so that we then can make that transaction faster, more efficient, and just better for the customer. And when we do that, I'm hopeful it helps the entire lending economy. And I think ultimately Main Street is the one that has the biggest impact because a lot of these loans hit Main Street.
Scott, last question for you before we wrap up. You mentioned a recent launch. What's next that you want to share with us here today?
We are launching a feature that takes an adaptive approach to assisting lenders in accomplishing what we call jobs to be done. There's all this work in your environment that uses the data assets you have that distracts your team from the more strategic work that they should be doing in the organization. And so, instead of having engineers like build use cases against some of these concerns, we're actually going to be giving our customers tools where in natural language they can just describe the workflow they need to complete. And our AI agents just design a plan for completing that workflow and execute that plan. And so in testing, we've been able to see dramatic results for all sorts of work. And we as EnFi, we don't need to anticipate all the use cases. You come with your use cases, and these agents over time get better and better at accomplishing those things. And so we're actually really entering this interesting, exciting world where you don't necessarily need to have software engineering gate accomplishing a use case. And why this is significant for financial services is because every institution is a snowflake. No matter what, every loan, every entity, every company, every guarantor, every property that you're lending to, it's a snowflake. And because of that, traditionally what we would use in financial services for automation is RPA. And because there's so many edge cases, RPA becomes brittle over time. And it's the reason why engineers might need to wake up at 2:00 in the morning to address a processing issue because we have that brittleness in our automation. And every time we want to automate more, it's like sprint cycles, it's engineering time. But we're now in an age where we can have an agent decide and code for that use case. And it's really, really magical when you see it. It kind of changes your ideas as an executive or a chief credit officer on what the art of the possible is around where you could take lending, because you can overcome some of these barriers around just moving paper or reconciling analysis for an annual review or these other use cases that sort of occur over time. So very excited about that. We're seeing a lot of really great results in testing. We have some pilots we're running with some trial customers that have decided to be design partners. They receive that first and they can try it out and then give us feedback. And I think it's going to transform the speed, accuracy, and security of the lending flow.
I love it. Scott, I want to thank you so much for joining me on the podcast here today. Can't wait for future conversations, and best of luck with everything. Very exciting.
Thank you, Jared. Nice to meet you.